Well, good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting your conversations, but we have a great dinner speaker joining us tonight, Senator Bill Hagerty, who I will introduce in a minute. I'm just going to say a few things about what a great privilege it is for Vanderbilt to host this event. I've had the opportunity to talk to many of you during reception, and it's wonderful to see the connections, the conversations that are happening already. And I think we have a buzzword for this event, which is radical collaboration. So I like that very much. And I'd also like to express my deep gratitude to our steering committee, who, in keeping with that theme, was really thinking about how do we imagine innovation at the level of a state, bringing together the key institutions that make Tennessee such a powerhouse, and that's creating so much promise and opportunity for us. I'd also like to thank our sponsors at the silver level, the Tennessee Valley Authority, at the bronze level, Middle Tennessee State University and Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Thank you very much to all of you. So as promised, now it's my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker tonight, Senator Bill Hagerty. Elected to the U.S. Senate in 2020, Senator Hagerty is currently serving his first term representing the state of Tennessee. His U.S. Senate committee assignments include the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, the Committee on Foreign Relations, the Committee on Appropriations, and the Committee on Rules and Administration. Prior to his election to the U.S. Senate, Senator Hagerty served as the U.S. ambassador to Japan, the world's third largest economy, and of course, America's closest ally in the region, and we're having such a close connection to the development of the economy right here in Tennessee. A lifelong businessman, Senator Hagerty started his business career with the Boston Consulting Group, where his work spanned 5 continents, including 3 years based in Tokyo, Japan. So you can see there's a theme emerging here. He later became a venture capital and private equity investor and served as an executive and board member of a wide range of companies, including ones listed on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. From 2011 to 2014, Senator Hagerty served as a member of the governor's cabinet and commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. As commissioner, he reorganized the department, eliminating over 40% of positions and saving millions of taxpayer dollars. This new approach helped spur Tennessee's strongest economic transformation yet seen, helping the state, which had an employment rate higher than the national average at the time, to become the #1 state in the nation for jobs created through foreign investment, and to be named State of the Year for Economic Development for an unprecedented 2 years in a row during his tenure. Please join me now in welcoming Vanderbilt alum, Senator Bill Hagerty.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. I mentioned to my friends at dinner that my staff had done a wonderful job of writing a beautiful speech for tonight, which I'm not going to deliver. Somebody's already clapping. First, I want to thank Chancellor Diermeyer for hosting us here at Vanderbilt. What a great team you've put together. Many friends from across the state and from beyond who have joined us here tonight, and I think your conference, I'm certain, is going to produce tremendous thoughts and I hope a tremendous way forward for us. I think it's also incredibly apropos to be here at this place at this time tonight, to be here with the Competitiveness Council, and to be here in Tennessee at Vanderbilt University discussing American competitiveness. And if you could bear with me for a few minutes, I want to take you back along a trail of competition. started right here in this state at this university. I want to weave into it how it impacted my life, what it's done to our state, and then we'll get to what it may mean for the nation. But something that many of you may not know is that one of the most impactful thought leaders on competition went to this university. He was born in Walter Hill, Tennessee, near Murfreesboro. His name was Bruce Henderson. Bruce graduated Vanderbilt University, went on to Harvard Business School. He didn't get to graduate because World War II was underway. They pulled him out, put him at Westinghouse, to help with the war effort at that point in time. And Bruce became the youngest member of the executive committee at Westinghouse, and eventually went on to form a firm called the Boston Consulting Group. Many of you have heard of it. That's where I started my career. Bruce changed the world in terms of the way we thought about competition. Some of you may have heard of the experience curve. Bruce took this notion to production, to manufacturing, to competition, and figured out ways to gain a true competitive advantage from a cost standpoint. For every doubling of volume, you generally see your unit costs go down between 20 and 30%. Bruce applied that dynamic in industry after industry and helped them win. The growth share matrix, do any of you remember cash cows, dogs, stars? That was Bruce Henderson. That was the Boston Consulting Group. That was the original portfolio management theory. Again, conceived by a man that graduated from this university and implemented around the world. I was a young person here at Vanderbilt University, didn't know what the Boston Consulting Group was, but someone reached out to me and said, Bruce is going to retire at some point soon. And we've sent a team down to interview at Vanderbilt. They interviewed people, I don't know, they didn't find who they wanted, so they went to one of the professors who said, you need to talk to Hagerty. Long story short, I got to know Bruce Henderson, flew to Boston, and it turned out that they'd only hired one other person from Vanderbilt University before then. That man's name was Bill Bain. Some of you may have heard of a small consulting firm called Bain & Company. Bill Bain is also from Tennessee, also a graduate of Vanderbilt University. And if you think about the contributions of those two to the world of corporate strategy and competition, I think that Vanderbilt has something to truly be proud of. You know, the last year of Bruce's life, he came to visit me in Tokyo, Japan. I was the senior expatriate in Tokyo at that point in time in BCG's Tokyo office. He talked to me about how he developed the firm, how he built the firm, and how he made it the force that it was becoming. And at the point in time I joined BCG, there were 250 professionals worldwide, 250. Today, 35,000. When I was in Tokyo, I thought we were having great success. I tripled the revenues and doubled the size of the office while I was there. But it was part of a journey that was all built on the shoulders of somebody that truly understood competition, and he took it on a global level. And what I learned from Bruce is that you need to understand the basic elements of competitive advantage. What drives your competitive advantage as a company, as a state, as a nation? And so I thought I might take you through how that thought process later informed some of my work. I left BCG on a leave of absence. I took a year off and went to Washington, D.C. to do a program called a White House Fellowship. I was assigned to the White House, and I was made the chief economist of something that was called then the President's Council on Competitiveness. Do you all remember that? The White House Competitiveness Council, the evil Competitiveness Council, many people said, because we realized that the most important and impactful way to make America more competitive was to deal with the sclerotic set of regulations that had been imposed on American industry. To free up the animal spirits of American industry, we had to get this regulatory sclerosis out of the way, and we imposed something called, guess what? A cost-benefit analysis on regulations. I know it sounds shocking, but Chad, this was the first point in time that I met Deborah. Deborah was at the Commerce Department then. And she saw the vision of an organized effort to deal with American competitiveness. We only lasted as long as an administration, but it's an honor to be here with you today to see that this has carried on for decades since. And again, a particular honor for me. Back to competitiveness, though. How do you think about competitiveness if you were a state? I had that challenge dropped in my lap because one of my good friends won the governorship in 2010. He called me and several other people from the private sector to come in and serve and help him build a new administration. My job was to be head of the Economic and Community Development Department. Most people call that the Commerce Secretary in other states. At the time I came in, as the Chancellor mentioned, Tennessee's unemployment rate was well above the national average in the United States. Our wage growth and GDP growth rates were below the national average. Tennessee was in the bottom half of every economic metric in America, January of 2011. We needed to do something different, so my chief of staff was from McKinsey, and we sat down and we basically BCG'd the strategy. It took us about 9 weeks. We put the blueprint together. That blueprint is still being executed today. And as the Chancellor mentioned, we eliminated over 40% of the staff, but we were able to raise the average salary considerably, about $14,000, $15,000 per head, which in state government is actually a meaningful number. We brought people like Victoria in. We recruited around the state. We were able to bring in a different type of person to help us recruit like never before. And we thought really hard about the state's competitive advantage. And guess what it is? It's something that you can't change, but it's something we're blessed to have, and that is our location. Think about where Tennessee is situated. You can get to 2/3 of our population within a day's drive. There's a reason Lamar Alexander was able to recruit Nissan to come back in the 80s, because Lamar took a photo of the United States taken at night. And he pointed to, he said, see all those lights there? That's the concentration of the population of the United States. And he pointed right to the middle. He said, that's my state. But think about how we've built on that logistical advantage. There's no coincidence that FedEx is located in Memphis, their hub is there, that UPS's hub is in Louisville. Equidistant between the two is Laverne, Tennessee, and Nashville right here in Middle Tennessee. We are the logistics hub of America. So building on that, going to companies that value, for example, just-in-time manufacturing would make sense, wouldn't it? Today, if you drew a circle around Nashville, Tennessee of about 250 miles, you will find 800 automotive suppliers there. Now, I'll say this, again, back to personal competitive advantage. I suspect I was the only Commerce Secretary in America that could deliver a speech in Japanese at that point in time. So when the Chancellor mentioned that Tennessee became the #1 state in the nation for creating jobs through foreign direct investment, let me tell you where that came from. One nation comprised 60% of that investment. That means more than all the others combined, and that was Japan. Again, play to your advantage. And we did. And if you think about where Tennessee is today, we've got a business climate. You can change that, and we did. We've continued to improve that. This is a very desirable and attractive place to live. Again, great logistics. We continue to work on our workforce. I had a fascinating conversation with the president of Colombia. They've got some real challenges down there. They have a cash crop called cocoa that is creating some big problems. They've got to transform their economy. I said to him, I'm from Tennessee. We had a cash crop called tobacco. Every year, that tobacco crop made the difference in our family's farm making it or not. But in a generation, our state transformed itself to a manufacturing economy. You can too, but it requires something. It requires a business climate. It requires a rule of law that's consistent. It requires the ability for people and for companies to invest their capital. And that becomes the true source of competitive advantage for a company, for a state, for a nation. And on to the way I think about the competitive advantage for our nation today. We're challenged in many respects like never before, but there is no other nation like America. People want to come here. People want to live here. We were talking about software development just a few minutes ago. This is the place you come for innovation. We've got to build on our strengths. You know, something transformative happened back in 2017 when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was implemented and a major deregulatory proposition was undertaken. What we saw was tax rates reduced. We saw our economy take off. Our GDP was growing at twice the rate of any other economy in the world, any other major economy in the world up until the pandemic. Our tax revenues increased, thank you, Dr. Laffer. You look at what happened from a regulatory standpoint. The order was given to remove 2 regulations for every 1 regulation that was issued anew. I think the ratio got up, Deborah, you'll know the answer, something like 7 regulations per every new one. Again, removing the sclerosis and unleashing the animal instincts of competition. Our competitive enterprise system is a true source of competitive advantage, and I'll put it up against a central controlled economy any day of the week. We can do this, we should do this, but we need to constantly think about where our competitive advantage lies as a nation. In our heart and soul, we know it's our people. That's absolutely true. But we have other advantages as well. And I thought I might end by just telling you a story about one significant competitive advantage that we have that we need to figure out how to better deploy, and we need to get out of our own way when it comes to our regulatory approach in dealing with it. And that's our nation's energy. When I served as U.S. Ambassador to Japan, one of my many jobs was to get the Japanese to buy more U.S. LNG. My pitch to them was very simple. Your energy security and your national security are closely related. You're buying your energy right now from Russia. Are they your strategic ally? Or is it America? You can imagine how that conversation evolved. Eventually, the Japanese put billions of dollars of investment into LNG terminal facilities, both here in America and there in Japan. It was working. They're very concerned right now about whether we're going to continue to deliver, but it was working. The second part of that plan, I want you to think about this, was to put in transshipment facilities there in Japan. So as we continued our production of LNG, we would send that to those transshipment facilities, and we would send that throughout Southeast Asia. If you think about a better counter to the Belt and Road Initiative of China, I don't know what it would be. China might go build a bridge, an airport, a deep water port. Any of that could be nationalized at any point in time. The quality tends not to be high. There are lots of problems with it. But if you are supplying the energy for your partners around the world, that's a strategic bond that's quite significant. And it has implications that are incredible from a national security standpoint. We've got to figure out how to apply our competitive advantage, not put ourselves in a position where we become dependent on our adversaries for anything from batteries to solar panels to turbines. We need to be thinking about what makes America strong and therefore makes the world stronger, because I can assure you of this. The world needs a strong America like never before. And if we play to our strengths, if we think about our competitive advantage every day, we can and we will win. Thank you for having me here tonight.